All right, so it's June basically, um, and I'm going to be switching up the decks that I'm working with this season. Last season was, uh, a couple weeks ago, I just started finding myself like uninspired. I don't know if that had, I can't say that had anything to do with me being tired of the decks I was working with at the time or some other external factors. Um, but I found this need, after having dealt with that, I found this need to just kind of go back to more, I guess, basics. I hate saying go back to basics because, I mean, any deck is however you interpret it. But I wanted to work with my Rider-Waite-Smith deck and do, as opposed to doing exercises with decks that I'm getting to know, do exercises with like the cards in and of themselves, not so much different artistic interpretations. So obviously the best way to do that was to just use my Rider-Waite-Smith. So that's the first deck I'm going to be using. I have the Centennial Edition. I don't remember the exact name for it, but I'll link it down below if you like this version, because I personally, you know what, I didn't want to get this deck. I'm not gonna lie, I did not want a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck because I just thought it was boring. I mean, artistically, it's like not the most interesting, and it relies obviously very heavily on symbolism, which is great, although not. And you can't. Who am I to say that anything bad about the original Rider-Waite-Smith? But as a reader, I find myself more drawn to um, actual depictions as opposed to symbolic depictions in my cards. So that's where I was at with the Rider-Waite-Smith, and I eventually I was just like, let me just get the at least one version of it, the original, so that I can have something to compare it to. Because I find looking at a new deck and doing a side by side kind of unlocks other layers of meaning beyond just what you see in the imagery or the new artistic interpretation. So long story short, I got it, and I actually really liked it. I do really like it. It reads, I don't want to say it reads the clearest, but it's very, very communicative. I use it for other things besides reading cards, and I love the card stock. This is my favorite card stock. I actually even emailed them, US Games, and asked like about the card stock because it's one of my few decks that doesn't warp when it gets really. I'm gonna say it does it in the cold. It's hard to tell if it does it in my environment because it's very cold or very hot, because when it gets very cold, the heat comes on. But I am pretty sure it does it in the cold. And not all of my decks, but this one is the most reliable one in terms of not doing that. So also I really like the backs. I don't like the checkerboard pattern or plaid backs that some of the versions have, but I really like the backs of these. But yeah, so the cardstock is my favorite. It decides to, like, apparently are resistant to chipping because I overhand shuffle a lot pretty aggressively if I'm doing a jumper reading. And I mean they're like brand new. Not even a crinkle. So yeah, so I had emailed US Games about the cardstock, and it's obviously, of course, it's a proprietary blend. So probably not going to find this in any other deck, and I will just have to deal with all my other cards warping. So again, that's the Centennial Edition, nice muted color palette, and like I said, I'll link that below because I know a lot of the turnoffs for the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is that it's just like kind of an eyesore. But moving right along, the next deck I'm working with is the Pulp Tarot. I just did an unboxing of this because it's an indie deck. And did not start working with it yet because I was working with obviously other decks when this one arrived, and I was true to my word. I did crack open the little white book, but it's still in order. So that's how you know I was very disciplined about that. So this deck I was so drawn to, and it really it inspired me when I was going through it. I mean, you can watch I'll link the walkthrough below too. I had a lot of thoughts on the cards. Like, they were also very talkative, and even though it is very traditional in the imagery, there's subtle nuances that really open it up for another level of interpretation. So I really liked that about it. Even now going through it, like I'm getting distracted just looking at the cards. So I wanted to do, I was probably going to do the tarot, I think I'm saying this right, the Tarot Kaizen, you know, the 100 exercises for like getting to know a deck or whatever. I was probably going to do that with this deck, because it is more traditional. It's less about interpreting, you know, new and wild artwork, and would help me connect to the root of the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and also not be completely boring at the same time. So that was deck number 2. Deck number 3, I'll just keep showing the tarot decks. This is I think it's called the Tarot of Physics. Bought it maybe a year ago, if not more. Haven't used it because I just wasn't ready, but I knew it was something I needed. My spiritual beliefs and practice are very rooted in science. And so I felt that this deck was super necessary. So any UFC fans out there, it's a little Easter egg. It's basically different concepts of science related to each card. I've only seen this, I've seen the flip through of it that I watched when I first found out about this deck. And actually, no, it wasn't even a flip through. It was somebody was listing like most interesting tarot decks that they had or something like that. I don't even remember, to be honest. But I've seen it then, and I saw it on another tarot tuber's channel. And I believe that he's a science teacher, so he probably can get way more out of this than I possibly could without Google. But very interesting interpretations coming from someone with so much more knowledge on the subject. I'll link that channel down below too. But yeah, my plan for this one was to use it as sort of a card a day type of thing. Because I think I would be overwhelmed if I sat here and said, okay, Millie, you're going to go through every single card of this deck one by one. I think I would probably get burnt out. So I was probably going to do a card a day and pull. And card a day for me doesn't mean every day. It's highly unlikely. But a daily thing, bi-weekly maybe, and just journal on the card that I happen to pull and its relation to the traditional card. So you do have the court cards labeled, I know I started rambling about this. You do have the labeled court cards, and then it came in this order. So I am assuming, but perhaps incorrectly, that let's see here, that energy is wands, the suit of wands or fire. That one I'm pretty sure on, actually. And then time, I'm kind of torn between time being being cups or water, and being swords or air. And it was very clear to me when I first went through it. My gut reaction was time was water, but then I was like thinking about it more, and I was like, is it though? Because the next suit is space. Like a single line connects 2 points, and then you have, when the universe began, gravity affected atomic level forces. And so I'm kind of like, and then like a pendulum swings evenly across the center of gravity, and two-dimensional spaces measured in coordinate pairs. I kind of felt like maybe space was water and time was air. Oops. It'd help if the camera wasn't shaking horribly and was in focus. Yeah, because this feels kind of like 2 of Cups and 2 of Swords to me. But anyway, I have to sit with it, because then there are some cards in space where I feel like, oh, that's more like the blank of air instead of water. So I'd have to really, like I said, this is the reason why I haven't worked with this yet, because I wasn't ready at the time I got it. And it's going to be an endeavor. A lot of Googling is going to be happening. But I like the idea that it's going to really help me dive in to a whole nother layer of like divinatory cards that's more applicable to my beliefs anyway. So that was I'm not planning any fancy exercises with this or anything. That was just my so-called study deck. Oops. And then the last deck I'm working with, just got this deck also. This is an Oracle deck. It's the Archetype Cards. By Carolyn Miss, I guess. I don't really know how to say her name. Apologies. But if Carolyn Miss is watching. But I got these for the same sort of reason I chose the decks that I am using, just to kind of go back to basics, so to speak. And I was also very interested in the fact that these are still in order. Let's see. Let's go to K. They have the court cards in here. E, F, G, H, I, J, K, H, I. Oh, here. Okay, Knight. Okay. So they have the light and shadow attributes of very common archetypes. And I thought that this was really interesting, especially since I was working with my very basic Rider-Waite-Smith decks, to sort of help me dive into the court cards also without the distractions of artistic interpretations of deck creators. So I liked that they had, I didn't really realize that they had the court cards in here. They at least have King and Knight, and I believe they have Queen. We don't have page, but I imagine a page is probably something else that I can't think of right now. Oh, they have prince. Oops. So I guess if you're working with like a Thoth system, and then they do have queen. So I also was really excited about having a deck. I mean, how often are you reading for yourself or someone else and you're asking like a who type of question, and like out pops a fucking like I'm trying to think of the most obscure tarot card that would not help you answer who without bringing up whole other questions. Like a Five of Wands. Like, okay, maybe you'd get from that a coworker, but how many people do you work with, you know? So I thought I was excited about the idea of having, these are, I guess, blank cards for you to make your own. Probably not gonna do that. How would you even like write on here? Like, this is the most glossy material. You'd have to buy whole new pens. It'd be like a whole big deal. They'd probably smear everywhere. Anyway, what was I saying? Excited about the idea of having cards that could answer straightforward who questions, and also be like identifying cards for a occurrence, for example. So, and the book is pretty informative. Here we go. Something other than children would be great. So yeah. Oh, the Hermit. There were a lot of, I mean, you know, tarot is all archetypes anyway, so there were a lot of cards that reflected back to a tarot deck. Lovers, whatever. Mystic, you know, could be your high priestess. You have your mother as like an empress. The father's in here for your emperor. You have the priest, easily could be your hierophant. Kind of also has the same sort of connotations of shadows, like a hierophant reversed. So yeah. Those are the 4 decks I was working with. I was going to maybe add one more, but I was like, no, let me not. I've been feeling, sometimes I give myself so much to do that I don't know what to do. I'm sorry about that glare. I had to switch lights halfway through if you didn't notice, because once again, my light went out. So yeah, I've been trying to limit my options so that I can actually focus on something instead of just thinking about focusing on various things. So these are the 4 decks I'm going to be working with, how I'll probably be working with them, and probably be doing my pick a card readings with these decks moving, I mean, at least for this season, you know, although this season might be extended for me because I really need to sort of recenter myself, and not just in this aspect of my life, but this is one of the most important parts of my life is my spirituality. So it's, you know, where I'm going to need to regroup the most. And so yeah, probably be throwing in, maybe like if I'm doing readings, I like to throw in an astrology deck. I actually learned from my last season cards that I really like reading with astrology cards. So I'll probably throw those into a reading maybe, and possibly there's another oracle deck I have, Oracle of the Radiant Sun, which is very astrology-ish. It's actually a very in-depth astrology deck. But it has great keywords and little pictures on the cards, and I love using that deck. And I think it looks great with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck artistically, so I might use that one too. But these 4 will be my main focus, and hopefully it helps rejuvenate my downtime. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this.